Jesus, I've come to be with you. 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 that gives us room to breathe. I'll come and meet you like I am the prize. It's the one place I can just be me. Jesus,
All right.
Are we live?
We are live. The.
Life? All right. I'm trying not to be low energy Jeb Bush here. Then I'll have to go back and re-record this.
We're going to be in
Like that one time.
Constantinople, brother.
That like, hi and welcome to the podcast. This is nah. So it's been 5 years since our last episode. Lots changed. You got married.
Yeah, I did, dude. Took me long enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah, living in sin.
Yeah, for real. Just a little bit.
Nah, but yeah, so what we're talking about too is I don't know, you talk about it, man.
Yeah, so it's
Talk about
like
what it was.
a lot of people have been kind of like asking about like Orthodoxy and like why I chose it, and it's been a multitude of different things, and sometimes it's hard to answer, especially like through a meme or through like a message. So we figured, hey, we both haven't really been on here for a minute, so I figured this would kind of be the best approach at that. So it was like, dude, where do I even start? I guess one of the things that really kind of like, I didn't really know what Orthodoxy was, one, to even like begin with, you know what I mean? And like,
I don't think a lot of people do.
no,
People, because I still have people too, when I say I'm Orthodox, they'll say Greek Orthodox. You know what I mean? Because I think
yeah,
it's almost like Roman Catholic, so it's Greek Orthodox. But it's more in depth than that, and Greeks aren't the only ones. And
what?
um,
No, the Greeks aren't the only ones. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a little more, I don't know, maybe because now we're in that bubble. So it's like, I feel like I see it everywhere now. But yeah, no, it's definitely,
well, you know how to recognize it more
yeah.
now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because like, even like 2 years ago, I had no clue. All I knew was Roman Catholics, Protestants, and that's it. Like, absolutely no clue about Orthodoxy. Like, I think I'd seen like memes of it through like Catholic pages, like of like Orthodox. I didn't know there were Orthodox priests. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's a priest with a beard. Cool. He's saying something kind of based. Cool.
Well, yeah, he's saying something based, and then you'd see a video every once in a while or an image of some priest, and there's like weapons, and
Yeah.
like, who's
It
this
was
guy
always the
blessing
Russian ones.
weapons?
Yeah. Dude, that's like a typical, like, every military meme page has posted that
Yeah,
Russian Orthodox priest blessing weapons, and what does it say? I can't. It adds like 10 points of like magic or spirituality
Yeah,
to the way.
yeah,
But
or damage.
yeah, +10 holy damage. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
isn't that,
yeah.
dude? It's so funny. He's been like right in our faces this whole time and just no clue to it. But it was
Well,
what was it? It was you honestly that kind of sent me down that rabbit hole of but even I guess prior to that, I gotta kind of like preface a little bit of context of just during the lockdowns and all this other fun stuff originally when all that stuff kind of went down. Uh, that's kind of what softened me, maybe not softened me, but kind of prepared me more along those routes of like seeing things a little differently because like the church I was going to was like a Protestant evangelical church and they quickly bent the knee to to big daddy government. They said, "Oh, Kawaii senpai, please no," you know. And I was like, "Bro, like, what are we doing?" And then like I was like, "Bro, like, are we really just doing all this stuff? Like, are we really that scared? Like I thought we believe in God, bro. Like, and I thought I did too, but I was still kind of going with the flow of things. And then
well,
that,
can I say something to
yeah,
that
yeah.
from my end? Because at that point too, I was a catechumen. Um,
Oh, nice.
and so what was interesting about it though
Mhm.
was the church I was attending. Um, the so it was the 17th was a Tuesday with a lockdown. I remember it was St. Patrick's Day, and so on the 15th at the church, um, the priest, it was still kind of that really unknown, and we had just started Lent type stuff, and I was getting involved with a lot of different things, because I've been
Yeah.
doing classes up to this point, and we were going over to another church as well because we were having one of those pan-Orthodox kind of deals that they have, a lot of times too. Just so the audience, if you guys aren't familiar with, it, a lot of times during like nativity season
Like
and
pre-sanctified
Lent
gifts,
season.
like during Lent. Yeah, yeah. They have all the different Orthodox priests from all the churches. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they do a lot of just different types of services at times, very because even because I'm on the old calendar, um, we have this weekend. Oh yeah, so but it doesn't really matter. We're just
Yeah.
like 13 days difference between one another, but we're actually having theophany, blessing of the waters, and we're doing it with it as a pan Orthodox kind of thing this weekend. Just as an example of that. Because it's a specific thing related to nativity. Nevertheless, so that Sunday we had the service that morning. The priest talked about, because even in Constantinople, when there was the Black Plague, they were still doing the Eucharist, and the Eucharist had never changed. And all of a sudden, man, it was funny too because I was trying to get there's a whole set of books because there are a lot of different services for Lent.
Yeah.
So I had spoken on that night because I had gone to one of the Greek churches for that Pan Orthodox type of thing, and I had spoken to one of the guys. He was going to get them for me, and then man, they do the lockdown, and like already, that guy was already like, "I'll leave it on my porch," because he had to go into the church to get it. But it was funny too because it was funny too, bro, because like he was so about like, well, not he, the priest, because he wasn't the priest, but the priest was all about like, yeah, we're gonna, we've never shut things down. You've gotta believe, like you gotta have faith kind of thing.
Yeah, of
But
course.
then like so many churches fell in line to different degrees, and I think in the
Yeah.
initial part of it, and that was part of kind of the challenge of some of that stuff was that I think some of the people, because I know even early on, right, like I was kind of like, because the numbers they were saying were just insane, but
Yeah.
like I'll ever trust them again on any of that stuff. But well, dude, because legit, I mean, I was sitting there with
no,
spreadsheets, and I was going up to John Hopkins' website, and bro, I was sitting there and I was taking that data and I was transferring it into spreadsheets, and they were saying the death rate should be 3 to 7%, right?
yeah.
And so just check this out. Think about this, because you being a doc, you get this. So they were taking the data, and the only people that they were testing at that point were the people that were sick enough to be hospitalized, because that's apparently the only, the way they ran that PCR test, which was BS. But they were only doing it to them because they only had enough to do that. And bro, like the highest numbers I was finding was like maybe 0.62, 0.7. So that was the percentage of people who were hospitalized. And I'm like, okay, after a couple days, I was already like, something's wrong here. Like
Yeah.
this does not make any sense at all. And you know what was funny too? Because I work with a bunch of like atheist nerd type people, you know what I mean? Or they're like, at best, like, yeah, I went to
Mhm.
church when I was a kid, but woohoo, go science. Um, I effing
Science.
love science, bro. But I was trying to share with them this data, like what I was finding. They didn't want to hear it already. Like the magic spell already hit. So
Yeah. I could see
I
that.
just want to say that, like, there are a fair amount of Orthodox churches that didn't shut down.
Yeah.
And even in like it was either Montenegro or Macedonia, like one of the bishops from over there, like he was like fighting with the government hard because traditionally they always end up doing like processions of icons whenever there's been like a pandemic, things like that. And they were being told they couldn't, but this guy like really fought them. Um, Ultimately, my point being, like, there's people who stood up, but there's a fair amount of people like there's no they're not unscathed. The Orthodox Church isn't unscathed.
Yeah.
So to your point of, back to what you were talking about with the evangelical church that you were at, like how much they bent the knee. There were plenty of Orthodox churches in. Now at the same
Yeah.
time, too, some of the ones that initially did, but simultaneously, some of the ones that did just continued and bent more and more because I think so many people, instead of the priest actually standing up and like being like, yeah, we're not doing this, they were just like, well, I wanted them to continue to give me money.
Yeah, I could definitely see some of that, and even like the parish I was at, I think they did it one weekend or something like that, and then they were like, "Yeah, no, this ain't it," and then they opened right back up, and they were like, "Yeah, no," but I granted I was going through, I didn't even know all this. Well, the church I was going to went straight all online. That evangelical church I was going to,
Dude,
and then like
man,
literally
and
no
I gotta,
one was allowed except people that were already like volunteering and helping out, which I already was. So like it's kind of disheartening that it was just like, bro, like everyone's like really
oh
kind
dude,
of doing this and going all in. Like I understand of like wanting to reach people online and all that, but like to sacrifice the services and for people, like you said, it's like during any other time they could be people dying. It's like the one
dude,
place that should
they were
always remain open.
stacking
Yeah.
they were stacking bodies in cathedrals in Constantinople during the Black Plague and still doing the services. Like,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that they were telling me. And so as we were getting closer and closer to Pascha Easter, I
Mhm.
was getting I was getting angrier and angrier. I'll be honest with you because I was like, and it was just like, you know what, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we should be, because especially for Orthodox, and you understand this, like the Eucharist is about healing. It's about
Yeah.
healing us. Everybody that
Yeah.
partakes in that, it's about making us get closer to God by consuming that.
Yeah.
And they're denying us that. And they're denying us the ability. We're supposed to wear masks and kiss the icons.
Yeah, and I think more of the other thing too, that even like I never wore one and I hate wearing one or whatever, like, but something else that I know we're kind of jumping all over the place. Something that
Yeah.
David Patrick Harry kind of said on his streams on Mass is like we're hiding the image of God that is in us by covering our faces in that manner.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were about that. Hey, wear the mask. The stay 6, bro. They had at some point they started allowing like X amount of people in, and they had chairs separated and everything. And if you were like a family, like you could sit
Dude.
like wife and husband, and like, you know what I mean, like like it was like ridiculous, bro. Like I wish I could tell you. Like I'm pretty sure like everyone knows what I'm talking about, but got to a point I'm like, bro, like what are we doing here? Like, theoretically speaking, right? Like if things are as bad as they say it is, I would at least know one person who's, sadly, been affected in a crazy way. But I was so like disillusioned by the way that that church reacted, and then seeing everything like you, I was seeing all the data, I was seeing numbers, and I was like, bro, like how? Like it just, and even then I remember all the memes that were coming out during that time, you know what I mean? Oh, hey, somebody they jumped out of an airplane, their parachute didn't open, they died from the coof. And like that was like the running joke. You
But there was
remember
stuff
that?
like that, dude. I mean, because I remember
Everything,
too, dude.
every death
Dude,
was
there were like people that were in motorcycle accidents.
yeah.
There were people who were getting shot, and
Yeah.
then they were attributing the gun like a gunshot. They got a gaping gunshot wound, like a
Yeah.
completely. And this is somehow, oh yeah, but because they had
The coof,
a
yeah.
PCR test that had been run 1,000 times, that anybody would be positive at that point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was goof.
Hey, chalk it up. Chalk it up another one to it, brother. Just sprinkle some crack and get out of here. Oh wait, wrong skit. Uh, but yeah,
I
and
got
it's like
got hit by a meteor. Oh yeah, man, that goof.
hey, that's what killed the dinosaurs, brother. Even though the dinosaurs aren't real. That's a conversation for another. Either way, but yeah, it was like I'm like, what is happening? And
How
everyone in
dare
the
you?
military was like freaking out about it, and I'm like, we all and even like the survivability rates kind of came out, and that was like its own. I'm like, yo,
Oh, dude,
like
especially yeah, by the different ages and
yeah.
everything.
So that was another thing for me that I was like, okay, we should be fine. Everyone's like freaking out, but as I started staying more there in the church, the other thing, the wife and I started noticing more her because I'm blind, different things, you know what I mean? And then I couldn't see them. Like I had to straight up get hit in the face, you know what I mean, with like certain aspects of things. And like I think even during that time frame, you and I were already kind of talking about Christianity, and you were already on that journey while I was still kind of like trying to figure things out on my own. And as much as we have all these resources and we have a literal computer on our hands, like I didn't think of to research other churches, history on Christianity and stuff like that, which was like my first
Well,
mistake.
but
You know
why?
what I
But
mean?
but like, I guess why would you have? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's
that's not
true.
that's not necessarily like. Maybe at some point, I guess it does. Like as things are starting to add up, but if you've got trust in that, what
That
you're
system,
participating
yeah.
in, because I was already at that point because like I mean I had already transcended the I'm going to get struck by lightning if I walk into a church phase
Yeah.
and committed to going to church. So, and that was the thing too that was challenging for me is because like I want to be here and I need to be here and I can't. Oh man,
Yeah. But your journey was a little different because,
sure.
like, if you want to talk a little bit about that, because your journey, like, is a little more different than mine. But if you wouldn't have gone, I mean, everything gone
But
through like God's grace, you know what I mean? But like, if you can talk a little bit
sure.
about that, so then that way things kind of
Yeah,
make more
I'll
sense
do
for
like
people. Yeah.
the 30,000 foot view. So, for me, I was baptized Catholic as a kid. Attended some services with family members at times. Didn't really understand too much, but then as a kid growing up, I had a number of different friends that went to different kind of Protestant churches, whether it was Catholic or I'm sorry, not Catholic, excuse me,
I mean,
just like
technically.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm sorry, they were Lutheran and just like some like maybe Baptisties with the Christian stuff. I feel like I'd go along with them. And it was oftentimes too, the funny thing about it is I remember one of my friends growing up,
Mhm.
his parents, they had a membership at like a country club and they had a pool. We always wanted to go to the pool. But I couldn't go to the pool with them unless I went to church, and oddly enough, no, and it's funny though too, because it's like, you know, that was one of the things too, because I always remember like just like little Bible studies and sitting there with the Bible, and there's always something cool, man. Like when you open up a Bible, at least for me, like the type of paper that they have in the Bible,
Oh yeah,
and
that thin, like just like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that, and then the numbers and everything like that. There's something just in my soul, like when I got that, when I got my Orthodox Bible, it kind of struck with that. So anyway, so I was doing stuff like that, but then I got involved as like in some youth groups, some what do you call it? Just various kind of youth, kind of
yeah. A little youth
evangelical type
group.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, things like that and everything. But it was really like weird too, man, because like there were things that I was involved with where, like I'd be doing like performances with people, and then they'd give me like a Bible quote and they'd want me to like talk about it. And I'm like 16, 15 years old. I'm like, what do I know? Like I was just kind of
Yeah.
like, this is really weird. That whole, oh yeah, no, the Holy Ghost will just boom. But that actually kind of turned me off, honestly. I
Yeah.
felt like it was really weird and contrived, and that's when I went like more harder into sort of like the punk rock kind of scene and stuff. Um, and that there was like other things besides that, but it was just sort of that nihilism that really got me on the road. One of those pieces to the nihilism and things like that, and you know, I I ended up joining the military. I spent a little bit of time in art school, but like more stuff like when I was in art school too, dude. I was involved with a lot of like bad stuff, like stuff I didn't even realize. Maybe at some level of me I've forgotten, but like magic type stuff. Like I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
around people that were into like Golden Dawn, Crowley, and magic. Like I wasn't like super in depth with it, but there was a lot of people around me, tarot cards,
Oh yeah.
things like that I was involved with. At a big level. And like honestly, dude, like one of my girlfriends from back then, she ended up becoming schizophrenic, and I can't help but wonder, like now understanding schizophrenia more and stuff like that, like, what influence that may have played. Um,
Oh, for
but
sure.
then, because I was taking that perspective too, as to that I saw that there were certain things that were going on around me, and there was ways to affect those things, but I wasn't really aware of what it was that I was involved with, and it was a lot easier just not to even face it and just kind of be a more degenerate, like when I got out of the military for a bit, like I called myself Christian, I guess, but I didn't really go to any churches. It was that kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
Christian, but whatever, dude. Just play
yeah,
loosey goosey.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a Christian, but I look at porn. Big deal.
yeah, I'm a Christian. I get drunk all the time and like say obscenely things. Go on Facebook, on Instagram Live, and call people all kinds of things. Yeah,
Yeah, dude. Like, hey, man,
yeah.
I'm at the bar. I'm at the bar taking girls home, but I'm a Christian. you
Yeah,
know,
I'm a
kind
Christian.
of.
I'm over here dropping acid and like ecstasy and all kinds of dumb stuff. Yeah, dude, no worries.
But then I reached a point too with various different things that occurred where I just was just I reached a point too where I was just like, man, this doesn't even make sense. Like, there's no God. Like, there's no God.
yeah,
And I kind of like it was sort of like a mix between some Buddhism, atheism, agnosticism, things like that. Various other things happened. Um, trying to deal with some of my own anxiety, depression, PTSD, things like that. I had been through things like SSRIs. Those
yeah.
only made me feel worse. So I got into a lot of weed and stuff like that, especially like I was living in Colorado, and so,
Dude, weed, bro.
well, it helped, honestly, man.
I
I
know,
mean,
I
like,
know.
yeah, I mean, I can't completely like talk down it because I know it does a lot of dumb things to a lot of people and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But do you know how many times like I'd have dudes come out to me in Colorado and I'd just get them high, and it would help people out with PTSD. So I couldn't deny that
yeah.
of
There's
it, and
definitely like in a right proper context. Yeah,
then at the same time too, that's when I got into a lot of like the plant medicine stuff.
yeah.
Mushrooms. I was growing my own mushrooms. Um, and honestly, like doing stuff like that, it really helped me a lot. But I was very purposeful too with a lot of it because
Yeah,
it was one of those things too, like Food Goon. He and I. It was
yeah.
funny. It's weird because he and I have been friends for a while, and all of a sudden, like I was growing mushrooms, and I was talking to him. And he's growing mushrooms. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
The
And so we were
timing.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, and because we were both about a lot of that type stuff, because we always talked a lot about like, how do we fix people? Because that's like been a part of the journey, really, is like,
yeah,
understanding that there's so much damage that's been done, and a lot of the things too, by whether, myself, other people, things in the military, it's like trying to fix some of that stuff. Obviously, other things in life, but there was a lot
yeah,
of things in the military that had damaged us. And so my goal was to try to figure out, like fix myself and then like also share this with other people and figure out. But along the way, as I was doing that, like very purposeful, then it was helping me to confront a lot of negative places and negative things. And I was able to like hard moments confronting things about it and everything. But at the same time, too, like, hey, I'm seeing demons. And just well, let's think. Like
No, yeah,
you
yeah,
see,
yeah.
yeah, it's like wait, I see demons. Then I'm like, okay, if there's demons, then does that mean there's God? You know what I mean? And so it's like, wow,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of reflection on that. And so I ended up ultimately through various kind of things, I was just like, you know what? Because for a long time, whether it had been booze, whether it had been SSRIs, whether it was dude
Hmm.
Xanax, Valium, weed, like I was always escaping some way and not facing up because I was a damaged person from different things that I'd experienced, different things I'd been through,
Yeah.
multiple levels of things. And at the same time, I knew that there was more out there and I was trying to reach that, but I was afraid, man, because it's like
Because it's a
to,
lot to
to
take in and try to face all these things simultaneously without. In retrospect now, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's easier now, but yeah, back then it's hard to face all these things without a
well,
good
dude, that's
solid
the thing, yeah, too.
foundation. Yeah, yeah,
Well, dude, yeah, and just like when you haven't been like seeing reality through sober eyes for so long, bro, you're just an open wound. You really are. Like
yeah,
it hurts, but at the same time, too, I was like, look, I knew internally that I had to do that. Like I knew that if I wanted to be a better person, I had to do it, without all that stuff.
yeah.
And um, so I decided to do that, and it was me working through a lot of that stuff. Because I was one of those guys too, dude. Like, oh man, I'd stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. Like just like that, and then I'd go to work at 7 o'clock. Like, and I really like forcefully, and I'll be honest too. I mean, as much as I'll make fun of Jocko Good stuff like that, it got me back into a better, just being more disciplined about
Yeah,
eating and sleeping, and stuff like that. And so as I did that, it helped me because I needed that. You need to, if you're going to sober up, you need to have order,
yeah.
and I've always been just kind of one of those people. I just, through my own will at times, I just forced myself to do those things,
Just white
because like,
knuckle it. Yeah, yeah.
well, dude, because it was like, because I got addicted to opiates when, I had my leg shattered and I took myself off the opiates and it's just stupid, had myself addicted to benzos and took myself off of it.
Well, when you're when you're in the belly of the beast, and then you take all the benzos, and then you lose your mind, and then
Then you go to Serbia, and then you go to Russia, and then you've got a demon on you.
and then you come back, and then that's when things get extremely difficult.
And it
Uh,
really was, but it
That's
was
a
during
really
that
bad
time too,
Jordan
man.
Peterson.
Yeah, but during that time though,
So
getting getting sober made me also, and as I dealt with some of those other things, I wanted to get closer to God, and
so
through various ways. I was hoping to, because like the closest thing that I'd ever felt was like a Lutheran church at the time, and because one of the kids I'd grown up with, he'd become a Lutheran pastor, and I wanted to maybe like figure out what to do, but I could never. You know what, man? I could never like imagine myself going to a church where it wasn't him at the church. Like I drove by
yeah,
some of the churches, but I didn't feel it in my heart, and it was around that same time too where I was listening to various podcasts and stuff, and in the podcast, one of the times they suggested Father Seraphim Rose's nihilism. And at this point, too, as I'm sobering up, I'm really starting to see like the world for what it is. And man, I'm not liking what I'm seeing, but I'm
yeah,
trying to piece it together. And they suggested nihilism and they'd suggested an Orthodox study Bible. So I got nihilism. And because I didn't want to get a Bible at that point, because I was hoping that through nihilism I could rationalize my way still through it. But
yeah.
nihilism, just like after the second chapter of that, I was like, wow, okay, this is explaining everything that I'm feeling, and it's articulating it so much better than I can. And I was just like, all right, I better order that study Bible.
I'm going through Nihilism, the book by Father Seraphim Rose right now, and it's so hard to put down, but I do try to take it like little by little, and then just kind of chew on some things, because then yeah, it completely puts everything like you said, like everything how we see it And if you look at it with an actual like open heart and mind and reflect on what he's saying, you know it to be true. You know what I mean? But yeah. So like
Well,
you,
that's it's funny too that funny you're reading that because one of my copies I actually gave to Lucky. I think it'd
oh
be
nice.
interesting to have you and Lucky kind of talk about it. And it was one of those ones too. I didn't. It was one of those copies of it because it's one of those ones that I want to have my own copy that I make a lot of notes in, but I keep giving it away every time I get it. Maybe that's just the point. But
Yeah,
he got one of my ones that has a lot of notes in it. A lot of stuff
yeah.
underlined with things in the margins.
Same. That's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, and then I think it was during this time where, God, when was this? I think is I sent you a meme. What like was it 2021?
21, man.
2021. Like it was like early 2021. It might
Was
have
it early? Because I was thinking like it was either like late
summer.
spring or early summer,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. It was like spring summer. Cause I don't know where what point you were at like during that time frame.
Well, I mean, I was already a member of the church.
Okay. Because I remember you were talking to me about it, and I think it was after I sent that meme, and I can't remember how we got onto the I think because I started Sunday posting, and during that time frame, yeah, I was Sunday posting and just posting like, okay, it's Sunday for the Lord, we're gonna do some trad bait, no, just like some base like Christian posting or whatever, and then like I enjoyed doing it, but like it felt still odd that I would only do it one day. And like I felt like I wanted more, and then somehow that I think that sparked the conversation between even though you and I and like some of the other boys in PBF, we got like history, you know what I mean? Uh, but yeah, I think that's what started that conversation. I think I said, what was the meme I sent you of Father
It
Josiah
was Father
Trenum?
Josiah Fredham, but I don't remember specifically because he's in a lot of different memes. I don't remember.
It was the one where
And
it was just calling me what is it, a Christian extremist is a compliment coming from you rootless parasite or something like that. And I thought it was cool, and I sent it to you, and you were like, "Oh, bro, that's Father Josiah," and I was still
well,
like,
do you know why? Do you know why too? That was funny that you sent that to me because during the COVID stuff,
"Yeah,
Father Josiah it was so based. Um,
yeah,
like he was still like he held a bunch of church services out in California, and it's funny because he was broadcasting the stuff, but basically everybody was there, and there was no video, like it
yeah,
was just the audio of it, and he kept his church open, and like he fought hard. He had that spirit, just like I'm not doing this stupid thing that they're trying to tell him
yeah."
because he knew right away like this
He
doesn't
knew
make it.
what was the cost of giving in like that,
Yeah,
and it's just like, and I mean now like I understand. It's just like, yeah, brother, like there's no way, you know what I mean? But yeah, honestly, like I usually tell people, like it's it's a hard thing probably to hear for some people. I mean, if they don't understand like the full context or like kind of the perspective. But from my perspective, like the whole shutdown and all this craziness was, I feel like it was a blessing in an odd
oh
way,
for sure.
because it's like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have I wouldn't have seen all these things happening all at once, and I'm just like, no, like something's wrong. And then same thing with you know what I mean? And then afterwards seeing all this stuff, I'm like, no, it made me like lean more on God like during that time. Although granted I was in a different type of church, but it was like I got to, okay, it's like, okay, I need to do more and I need to try to like learn more, but just something still never felt right about, I never went to any of the men's groups or whatever. And like the pastor was always kind of like weird, you know what I mean? And just, I don't know, it just seemed super odd. But uh, I don't like to get noticed. I just kind of like to do my thing and just stay on the side. And then at some point, you know what I mean? Like, because the pastor's kid was in like the little class I was helping teach or whatever. So then now they got eyes on me, and I'm like, bro, can y'all just like leave me alone? I'm just trying to help and just do my thing and stay low key. But after like things started getting weird, we're just like, okay, like I couldn't see it, you know what I mean? And my wife was like, no, like something's weird here, like something just doesn't feel right. And during that time frame, it was still, you had told me, hey, check out Father Josiah, and then you sent me, who else? Father Spiridon, uh,
Oh yeah.
Orthodox Ethos, and I think it was just those three during that time frame. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So then I was listening to them in the morning, uh, and then also like on my way like home and stuff. So I was like still going to like this Protestant church, but I was taking in all this Orthodox content. And then I think somehow I stumbled onto Jay Dyer, and then so I was taking a lot of that in. I'm like, okay, this makes a lot more sense in like certain things, you know what I mean? And then but a part of me was like waiting for something else to say like, hey man, all right, you need to get out of there. And you were already telling me, bro, get out of there.
Well, it was funny too because you've also explained as well at times because wasn't at some level too your wife thought I was pushing you too much.
Yeah, and it's like it's hard when you're in a like a committed relationship like that, because you know you both love each other and you want to like you want the best for each other. But when other people are coming in to try and influence, or quote unquote, right, sometimes we can look at it the wrong way, where someone's trying to push us to help us, but without understanding a full context. And that's probably my fault as well for not being as like uh better at communicating certain things, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that was a mistake on my part, you know what I mean? And part of that journey too is owning up to a lot of these things, where if there was issues like that, it was from a miscommunication piece on my side. So yeah, that was
Yeah, no, because
one of those
it,
things.
it made me like kind of hesitant when I was first met your wife. I was like, oh man, she thinks I'm like this bad dude forcing this on you guys.
No, and like if anything, now we're more like more than grateful. You know what I mean? That like through God's mercy, you know what I mean. He uses friends and people. But yeah, it was just one of those things, and yeah, bro, we're live. What's up? uh, but yeah, it was. It just kind of had to happen that way. You know what I mean? And then for me, it took a whole lot. I think I said it on the podcast with Father John. It's like the not the priest, the you know the
Well, so
pastor
like,
had to go
but
up and
like,
say something completely just obnoxious, like saying that Joel Osteen is a blessing to Texas, for me to be like,
yeah.
yeah, bro, we need to get out of here. You know what I mean? And then from there, you know, we
So
left.
was that like the clincher?
Yeah, that was the clincher for me, bro. Like she was already wanting to go, you know what I mean? And then when we finally like said, "Hey, like next weekend or whatever is going to be our last weekend." And they were like, "Okay, you guys don't have to come and volunteer." And we had been volunteering for like 2 years or something like that, bro. Like I'm talking about Saturdays, Sundays, online services, like the whole nine, brother. Like, and then they just kick us out of the group chats, like if we're like yesterday's trash, dog. And this is supposed to be like a church, quote unquote, right? So we were just like, bro, and then we still told them like, yo, uh, we're still gonna like go and like volunteer, you know, our time and just in case. And like, no, you guys are good. So come Saturday when we're volunteering, guess whose spots haven't been filled? Ours. So like we still went and like helped out or whatever, and then we went to like the Sunday service or whatever, and then just everyone was kind of like giving us a stink eye, bro. So we were just like, yeah,
Yeah,
brother,
dude. I
like
remember
it
you. I
just
remember when you were telling me that too, and it's like that's just one of those things. And like, I don't know, man. Like,
that's what puts off people about Christianity, and it's just like their experience of like. And most people are gonna say, "Oh, dude, just go to another church, bro." And it's just like, well, like I've bounced around from so many churches, like from just like you said earlier, right? Grew up Roman Catholic. Well, I was Pentecostal, so I've heard of the speaking in tongues, running around, people like doing crazy, you know. Uh, uh, non-denominational, evangelical, I think we even went to a Jehovah's Witness as a kid a couple times. Maybe even Mormons a bit here and there, but we
Well,
realized it was like
my
weird, and then
my sister's Mormon.
yeah. Oof.
Yeah,
But
dude. Like,
Space
you want to
Jesus,
hear a
bro.
funny story? Want to hear a funny story about that?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, man, back when I didn't really understand what boundaries were and such, and I kind of felt sorry, because my sister had kind of turned herself into sort of an outcast with that, becoming a Mormon sort of thing. And so, like, she said, like, yeah, we're just gonna stop by here and gonna get something. She's like, yeah, well, why don't you just come on in? And then it turned into she had these old people, and like,
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean, like this nice old couple in there. So I ended up going on this whole little tour of like Joseph Smith and the Angel Moroni, and oh yeah, and then they like gave me a Book of Mormon too and everything, and I because it's like because dude, like, these are like my grandma and grandpa, you know what I
You
mean? And
can't
they're
be
like
mean to
really nice.
Granny and Grandpa.
Ah, bro, you can't be mean to them. Although now I'd be like, look, I appreciate what you guys are doing, but I'm really not interested. Thank you. Like now,
Or
just being the person I am. You
what's
know,
that meme where it's just like, "Hi, would you like to learn about? Would you like to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?" And then it's the Orthodox priest. He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "What would you like to know?"
yeah, man.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like bouncing around. I've bounced around so many churches. Like it's not even funny. Like even in San Diego, there's like a really I kind of like it's almost like a mega church now at this point, to be quite honest. And like we were really close with them over there as well too. And like my sisters, my mom, my whole family and stuff, like they were really close with the pastors there. But then like weird stuff always kind of started happening. And yeah, dude, when you find a church that like speaks to you, yeah, it hits different. And like
Well, I mean,
but
and that's
like
into. Go. I'm sorry. Finish what you're saying.
so yeah, so we bounced around different churches, but it's like, yeah, like you were saying, it's like once you actually, it's like I'm not trying to find a different church. I'm trying to find the church that I'm gonna stay in. And
Yeah.
that's where like once we made that jump into Orthodoxy, and then like it was kind of like I had that aha moment. Pastor says Joel Osteen is a blessing. I said, okay, we're out, deuces. And then we jumped in headfirst into just an Orthodox church. And it was like finally getting home. You know what I mean? Like as soon as like we come in, granted it was like, oh Lord, it's like Roman Catholicism. But I knew it was different, but I just couldn't really put my finger on the beat yet. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it's kind of hard to shake that. You've got that preconceived notion.
yeah.
Yeah, the presuppositions too, because of everything that you've gone through at that point, and you've seen that, and and a lot of what you assume is Orthodoxy is just Catholicism, and yes, there are similarities.
But
However, there's so many differences.
yeah, I mean, like now I know it, but just making that
Well, I'm
jump
only saying that for the
initially.
audience
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Just for the audience to understand, because I think that's the thing too.
yeah. There's that
And
because
too,
you walk
like what.
in, there's icons, there's incense, there's priests. Some places have pews, some don't. And yeah, it's that first initial. Yep, this is Roman Catholicism, but yeah, you have those web of beliefs, your experiences with things like similar. So yeah, you kind of have that
Well, because
presupposition
we're
of
all
that.
about pattern recognition, and that
Yeah.
fits the only pattern that we've known to that point. And yeah, okay, that's a very simplistic categorization, but it's really not that at all.
Oh no,
And
yeah, for
that's
sure.
just the thing to keep in mind, And it's I know one of the things too, and I think as people are listening, and one of the things that's been suggested, I think numerous different times from people as well, is if you do want to go visit, you could go all in. Like my first visit was on a liturgy.
Same.
You know, yeah, man. Like I dove right in. Just understand you're going to be there for a bit. It's hour and a half to 2 hours.
yeah.
Um, Sometimes it's suggested as well is to go ahead and what was that? Oh, feed
Yeah.
that. We've already got a guy saying,
Yeah, hit that like,
smash that like
subscribe.
button. Yeah, like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Thanks, Joel. But my I'm sorry. You may consider going on to a
Vespers.
Vesper service because
Yeah.
a Vesper service is going to be at 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. You can still experience it. I though honestly, like, I get that. Um,
No, of course.
but I think actually for me, and maybe you'll agree with this as well, going to the actual liturgy service, that's where you really feel it. It's
Yeah.
not that you're not going to feel something in the other service, but the liturgy, it's something else.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what we did, and we just kind of showed up Sunday, and we're like, okay, well, let's look at the hours, let's kind of just figure this out, and then I was like, whoa. We looked at the site, like it looked like a nice fancy church. So I'm like, okay, we have to go dress like nice, you know what I mean? Not that we didn't before, but realistically speaking, when you go to like a Protestant church, sometimes you're wearing like, like you're kind of nice jeans, kind of like little flashy, like, I might be going to the club, I might be going to church, like I'll let you guess, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of outfit. So no, we dressed up nice and everything, and like me and my family showed up, and like, we opened the doors, and we're just kind of like, we're early because we like to be there early. So it's just kind of like, all right, bro, like my wife's looking at me, she's like, okay, you got me here, now what? Just give me that look. And like as soon as we kind of walk in, this nice couple comes up, and he's like, hi, is this your first time here? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, where are you guys coming from? And we're just like, oh, we're coming from like an evangelical church. And they're like, awesome, like, so what brings you guys here? And we're like, we're trying to like figure this out. And they're like, awesome, okay, cool. And this dude sat with us throughout the whole service, and they have like little books and everything so you can follow along in the liturgy. But like, God bless him, you know what I mean? This dude is awesome. But he sat throughout the whole 2 hours explaining every bit of what's going on throughout the liturgy. And like my wife and I were sitting there like, okay, and like, it was a lot to take in, because like, I know I've probably said it to you, but it's like one of the things that I should have done is YouTube. What is an Orthodox service like? I literally did not do that throughout, from the time I sent you that meme to the day we showed up. And if I would have known what a liturgy was, I would have prepared like a little better and been like, okay, at least I can kind of see. But it was more of just kind of like, oh, we're going in head first, brother. Like, all right, babe, we're just gonna go and just YOLO. And but it was good because it got me.
Yeah, there's that Frederica Matthews Green. She's got like a whole blog you can find too as well. It talks about like if you're going to your first liturgy
Yeah.
or whatever, like what to expect, because it is going to feel kind of different and stuff like that. But to help to understand, because it can feel really alien if you haven't done that, which I did.
Yeah, same. Like, but I think that was one of the good things, that it was like that welcoming, that it like like it's different. Like, I grew up in Protestant churches practically my whole life. You have people that greet you. You know what I mean? Oh, hi, welcome, enjoy the service. Hi, welcome, grab some coffee. We have our store over here, and you can buy a cool shirt. You know what I mean? Like, but here there was this like genuineness. Not that those people, those greeters aren't genuine. You know what I mean? But it just didn't feel. There was that different feel to it that just I've. In all my years of like AKA being a Christian, right, like this has been like an actual genuineness that I had not felt anywhere else. And that for me was just like massive, because it was just like,
Well, you know what's kind of funny too is you become part of it more and more. You start to really understand too. Like they're not there to. They're not going to sugarcoat things. Like
yeah,
a good church with a good flock of people. It's not that they're going to like be harsh. They're going to be honest.
yeah.
They're going to treat you with respect, but it's not that fake plasticky sort of like, woohoo, we're so glad. Ah.
Yeah,
that weird like TV or whatever like movie kind of weird churchy kind of vibe.
yeah, no,
That's what I like though. Like, dude, some of the best conversations too, especially like the coffee hour at a
oh
good
yeah,
Orthodox, dude. Seriously, you know what you gotta do too. if you really start getting into Orthodoxy, you got to go to a Russian church because you know what? They pull out the vodka and the wine,
The,
and then they start talking.
the Greeks do too. They always have like this, like I don't know why them too. It's just all right. They got a wine. They got like some like I don't even know, dude. But yeah, the Russian church, yeah, dude. And then just the Slavic style is on a whole another level too. They're all beautiful liturgies, but it took me a
There's this.
while to kind of like get used to it. And that's the other thing too. It's like there are so many things into it that you're not gonna understand it all on their first go.
I
I'm just gonna
know.
tell you,
Yeah, you know what? Yeah,
like, and that's the thing
yeah,
for
dude.
most people that they think they can just understand it, but it comes
Yeah,
at
nobody's
you bit and
there-
pieces.
nobody's grading you. You know, like
Yeah.
because people are going to be like responding a certain way to certain things the priest says. And people know you're new. They don't expect you to respond the way they're responding. You know, there's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
there's not a judge sitting over on the side like, ooh, ooh, did you see what he did?
He didn't cross himself the right way. You're out, brother.
Oh, did you see the way he bent over? Completely wrong.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. And like it's hard at first to like cuz you see everyone and it's just like okay, everyone comes in, they kiss the picture. What is up with that? And then you're trying to like kind of figure things out and like all right, everyone's going up. Why are they going up? What is happening? And then at the end, it's like when you go up and get the antidoron, you know what I mean, the blessed bread, and then you're just like, I don't know. And then it gets awkward because everyone's like walking out and like walking towards like the priest, and you're just like, okay, cool, let's just kind of like do our thing. And then just sometimes, yeah, it's best to kind of follow along or like talk to someone. They'll help you out. You know what I mean? That's what happened to us. We're like, okay, we'll just kind of follow along. And that was like the biggest thing. And then talking to the priest afterwards too, like they recognize as soon as, like you said, if you're when you're new, because most Orthodox churches are small and kind of relatively small in number, I guess. But even then, like people see it and they feel it too.
They want to
and
help you out.
And they,
Well, you
yeah,
know, that's the thing,
they
though,
help
too.
you out.
You know, like I've heard from people, and I've not been into one like this, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
said one of the things to keep an eye out for, and this is just a general rule. I don't know that it's always true, but they say a lot of times, like you want to go to a church that they've got that people have kids. Like there's
yeah,
just a specific feeling, and there's generally a different feel because sometimes you'll go into some really like some places like back east and stuff like that, and
yeah,
everybody's old. Everybody's old. You know what I mean? Like they came over here on a boat, you know, like 100 years ago, and you know it's very ethnic-y. You know,
yeah,
but you know maybe one of those churches is cool. I don't know.
yeah. Mine's a pretty mixture. You know what I mean? Granted, there could be some more young, but maybe I just need to do a better job. I don't know, but yeah, no, like it was the first place we went, and if I'm being like quite honest, like you know, we decided to stay there, the wife and I, just due to like she really liked the priest, and I love him to death. You know, we both do now, but it was like the hard thing to do was like one, she hadn't really been a Christian for that long, so her experience with Christianity is rock and roll churches on Sundays. You know what I mean? And then doing the cracker and the grape juice for oh, dude, I just we were having this conversation the other day, and it just feels so crazy thinking about it that it's just like you read the Bible and it says, you know, the bread, like that, this is my, like that is Christ, you know, himself in the Eucharist. Yeah,
John chapter 6.
yeah, John 6, and you know, you're reading it, and then when you understand it in the proper context, you're just like, it's like there's a mysticism and a reality to it of the, you know, partaking, but then you're giving people crackers and juice, brother. Like, oh, it symbolizes the thing. It's like, no, but
That's
yeah,
yeah.
and that's another conversation. But yeah, anyways, like the biggest thing was just like, so she didn't have that experience, and then I pull her from there because she didn't feel good, and she was seeing things that I wasn't seeing, the way people were acting, and because I was in such a busy spot, and like always kind of like on my own, like I was kind of distracted by all these other things that I couldn't see, and I should have been like better at listening to her. And that's another thing that the church has helped me with, is to kind of like be accountable for my actions. And I know people say,
Bro,
"Oh, just be
you-
accountable, dude." But here it teaches a different kind of actual accountability that just it.
You know what? I'm
I've
curious. Let me ask
yeah,
you something. Since you guys just had that, so you had that crowning, which is
yeah.
basically it's the Orthodox wedding. So because obviously you're
I'm
married before.
married now, so
Uh,
it's official.
so,
I'm married.
but I'm curious. Have you felt like there's a change in the marriage behaviors or anything like that since that?
Bro, like there I can't even put into words like how like and I'm pretty sure like maybe at some point we'll get Mrs. DD on here if she ever builds up the courage, but like or she'll probably end up blackmailing me and just spilling. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, no, like for her, she's been praying for a huge change in like things, and putting up with me probably isn't the easiest thing ever. So yeah, it's definitely something that has completely changed me, and it's still
The reason
changing
why
things, and that relationship has changed a lot. You know what I
I
mean?
guess, I guess the reason why I was asking you, and I was curious, you're just describing some of these things here, but I know oftentimes, and I don't know how many people I've heard this with, and you know what? I don't think I've ever asked you this, but a lot of people, because I was chrismated, and so there's chrismation, there's
Yeah,
baptism, and part of me too, when I went into it, like, dude, I was just going into the stuff, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. I didn't know that I even had the option to be baptized. They didn't give it to me,
yeah, yeah,
so I was just like, I got chrismated. But I've heard from other people that that there's people who've been chrismated, but then they got baptized later on. But they talk about how much different their perspective changed with that.
yeah. I
Did you
mean,
do you think that with baptism?
I think so because it's like, I mean, I know you and were having this conversation about specifically that, and it was just like after doing so many like my godfather, you know what I mean? He gave me a book. It's called I think it's called One Baptism, and I acknowledge one baptism, and it's by I can't remember who it's by, but it's practically it comes off as the argument for why everyone should be baptized into or by the Orthodox Church, and it goes through a lot of different canons and a lot of different spiritual meanings, what the saints have done, what people over time have done, and why it's the correct thing. And uh, you giving me a lot of resources on that, videos and all that, but like after since then, actually getting accepted into and being baptized, it it did because even when I was a catechumen, like during my time when I was still in the military and like I was still kind of like learning things, but I was still in this like weird kind of Protestant-y kind of back like mentality, but I was trying to like get out of all these things and trying to actually take Christianity serious. But after the baptism, like I feel completely different because it's like just the perspective and the way I look at things now is just like there's a more severity now. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's because
No,
I'm
I don't know
actually
what you mean.
believing.
What's a more severity?
Because
What do you
it's
mean?
like every action, every word, it means something. Like there's a heavy cost to every little action and word, and it's just like if we're not very careful, it can trip us and it can trip others, and things actually start kind of aligning and making sense in that way. And just I actually started things actually started lining up in a certain way where now I try to be more careful as much as possible because now it's like it is just that because I can
You mean like
actually
there's
feel it.
consequences?
Yeah, there's not
Consequences
just
are
consequences, yeah, but it's like I'm also starting to like kind of feel that a little bit more like inside, you know what I mean? And just there's another thing too, like for once in my life I'm able to kind of feel of sort of not like happy, but there's like a joy, you know,
yeah.
that I thought I had lost it over years. And like you said, you know what I mean? Like you're in the military, you go through a lot of different things. Like I grew up in like like a bad neighborhood, whatever you want to, and then going through the military, PTSD, losing friends like during deployments, losing patients, and then losing friends and all that. You just kind of numb yourself to all this pain through alcoholism, drugs, you name it, anything under the sun, things that are like the military likes to, make absolutely grandiose. Oh, it's just what we do in the military. We drink, we beat our wives, well, I don't, but you know what I mean? It's all these like negative aspects of society, so it's like all those things, and just afterwards it's like you try to numb this pain, and then for once when you actually start accounting for all the things that you have done and putting them out and actually repenting of things, it gives you an actual room to breathe, because now you're not holding all these things. And then even though you're still going through a struggle, there's a different joy that just, things, God is there, and you can actually, there's an actual feeling of that, where I just haven't, in all my years, that's nothing like I've ever felt anywhere else. And I know some people might say it's a subjective, anecdotal type thing, but it's like,
Well, but you know what though, too?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing.
yeah,
How many people do you hear reporting like something similar? And I've heard that from a lot of people, and it's not that it makes life any easier, but in some ways though too, I think what I feel like in some ways too is like I feel more childlike in my
yeah.
approach to some of this, and I don't mean it immature, but that
It's like
yeah, you
a
use the
legitimate
word
curiosity, but with like a wanting to know, because like you want to know. It's like, oh, what's that? Like I want to know in the best way.
but you'll also too.
Yeah.
It's also the sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Well, the
It's
simplicity
like it was.
aspect.
It's the
Yeah.
joy. It's the joy.
Yeah.
Legitimately, it's the joy, because there's something. There's happiness and there's joy. And I don't know that I've ever really known what joy was. Maybe when I was a kid, I knew what joy was,
Yeah.
and maybe that's what I am. I'm finding that again. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference, and then like you see it, you feel it, and then every week, like I'm not saying that like God has never answered my prayers. He definitely has, you know what I mean? But it's been in a manner that has been completely different. You know what I mean? Like when I was a Protestant, it's like I would ask things out of my own sheer what I wanted. You know what I mean? God, like this is what I want. You know what I mean? And it's not like, you know what I mean? It's like you're like a little kid asking to touch the stove, and God's like, no, bro, you can't touch that. You're gonna get burned, and you're still kind of asking for it. And like we don't understand what we're asking for sometimes, and it was a lot of those things. And
Well, you know
then
what,
and then
and
finally
that's one of the
until
things.
now, yeah, like I kind of see it where it's just like, okay, what do I need to learn from God? Not God, this is what I need from you. It's more of, okay, God, what do you need from me? And that whole perspective, once I change
You know
my
what's funny?
mindset into that, it's a whole nother like ball game. Like actually, hey, let your will be done is a scary thing to say,
I guess at first it is, but
but
then it's not.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
hard. It's hard
yeah,
because
we're
we
attached.
come. We come from this culture too, where we're so self-centered,
Yeah,
and that's one of the challenges I see with a lot of mainstream religion is it continues to feed that. And one of the things that I found more and more is I'm less self-centered because, I mean, you know, and this is I'm not saying this. I What I'm saying is because I think this is the right way to pray. It's nothing like, oh, look at me. It's just that like 96, 98% of what I pray about isn't even about me,
yeah,
you know? And but that's the way it should be. That's
yeah.
we are like it's like a network. Like that's how I see it. It's like a network up there, and us praying, and everybody's praying for one another. That creates the strength. That helps to build the strength in one another.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. That whole mindset just completely it changes things, because you actually see it, and once you actually, and the other thing that kind of helped me stay on the route, because it wasn't just about like kind of like, okay, I'm here now what, you know what I mean? But it's like I was kind of very an intellectual, I guess you can kind of say, if I were to really kind of call it anything. I thought I was smart, you know what I mean? And then actually going down that avenue as well. So okay, prayer, what does that mean? Why this? Why that? And a lot more things start making sense too. So if you're kind of more of like a logical kind of thinker and stuff like that, and you kind of like history and things like that, the church has so much history that is completely untalked about anywhere in the Protestant realm, like mainstream wise. You know what I mean? And most churches won't talk about church history because it automatically refutes their position. Funny enough. But, and that was another thing that helped me into that. It's like, okay, why do they do it this way? Why do they do things that way? And then you start looking at the actual history, you start kind of looking at councils, why this liturgy, why this person, St. John Chrysostom, who's that? St. Basil, who's that? Why do we do their liturgies? And then it's like, okay. And that kind of helps piece certain pictures together. And then it definitely helps on that understanding for sure as well.
Well, that was one of the things that first initially got me into the church. It's engaging the intellect more, and about a lot of that, and understanding that, because a lot of that I really didn't understand beforehand. And that was what engaged me initially. And I still see people, like, some people get really caught up in all that, but I think, what I've found more and more, and as I've become more a part of this, is that there's so much more about it, like really opening up your heart and opening up your noose and really just engaging that way. And that's been really difficult, but it's also, I've grown a lot because of that, because it's realizing more and more the metaphysical aspect of it, because sure, all those intellectual things are great, but they reach that intellectual aspect of it at the same time by engaging that metaphysical. It's recognizing, and it's recognizing that metaphysical is real in a lot of the intellect of things like the scholasticism and whether it was rationalism and things like that. It's trying to place things in boxes that can't be placed in boxes. Because it's like we go to school, we study biology, we study all these phylums and all these different things. We classify things because as humans, that's how we understand things.
The mitochondria is the power cell of what is it? The
powerhouse. But it's even more too. Like, oh well, this is this kind of a bird, and these lizards are really, like all those little things like that. And it's like, sure, that allows us to engage, but there's so much more that we can engage with that we don't understand. Like we can't describe God. We can say that there is Christ and Christ was a human, but there's the pre-incarnate Christ who exists in the Old Testament that, like that's a whole thing that Protestantism isn't even ready to touch. What does that mean and everything like that? But at the same time too, it's like that onion video. It's a really funny video, and I'll have to share that sometime with everybody here. But it's a funny video because the guy is like, okay, today I'm going to interview God. And all of a sudden, it's just like this hurricane of light and sound and noise. Everything overtakes him, and it's like destroying the environment he's in. Like he can't even grasp the surroundings that he's in. And it's funny that the Onion did that because that's like really good theology, actually.
Yeah. Hold up, I might be able to post it up. Give me a second. Let me. Yeah, and honestly, one of the other things too that one of the other things as well that like my priest, I mean, he's honestly I love the man. He's pretty awesome, but he gave me the best bit of advice, especially when it came to like things like that, was you can have all this knowledge and it doesn't really matter, because if you don't have wisdom, what does it matter if you have all the knowledge in the world if you have no wisdom?
Dude, that's so true, because especially now too, I've gotten into reading things like Saint Paisios, Saint Porphyrios. I mean, these are guys who didn't even finish like grade school. And if you start reading the books of these guys, there's so much wisdom in there. And it's just like, it blows me away. And the thing is too, again though, there's so much wisdom, but it touches my heart as I'm reading that. And you know what? If 3 years ago I would have told you, I'm reading a book and it touches my heart, I would have laughed about it. Like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? But no, that's the truth. And that's just honest, man. Man, like I could sit here and try to put on this bravado or whatever like that because everything that PBF kind of was and maybe in
Yeah,
some ways
same.
still is Kosovo's and everything like that. But you know what? Like a lot of that stuff's just, you know what, man? Like how much of that type stuff, like there's a man to be masculine and things like that. Part of being a man to be masculine is just admitting what's true and what's real.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, man? And it's not in any way, shape, or form. Like, you know what? We've got a heart, man. You know what? And
Yeah.
honestly, that heart is probably one of the things that helped us to make it through some of the stuff that we made it through.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And it's just like actually coming into those things and like seeing what actual wisdom is was like it's completely different. And
Well,
you have to
you know what's
change
fun?
that perspective and just like you said, it's like yeah, we have especially for like military people or just people in general. I mean, we have this ego, this perception of ourselves, and you know what a man quote
Are you
unquote
are you
should
are you,
be. You know what I mean?
are you going to post that up
Oh, I
onto the?
I tried, but I sent it to you in the chat, so see if you can copy and like throw it over there because I couldn't do
Okay.
it. But yeah, that was that was a big game changer for me. And instead of looking at things of just I know all these things, it's like yeah, but what wisdom do you have for it? What experience? What how can you use it to help someone? And then that completely like. He pulled the rug right underneath my feet, and I was like, "Yo, dude, I don't even think about it like that." You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like
Well,
most of these things is just a matter of looking at things seriously and looking at yourself seriously for once. So then that way you can kind of like truly realize it's like, okay, what am I doing with my life? Like what am I doing with these things that I have or the things that I'm in charge of or what am I doing with my own actions and words and all these things as well.
well, you know, and it's kind of I think that point you were talking about earlier too is because how many times in environments, and you can see it better now, but you're interacting with people and you can project something about yourself, but it's not necessarily true or it's not necessarily you entirely, but you want people to perceive you as being that. And you can pull it off on a certain level.
Oh yeah, bro.
But but the thing that's funny with that is how little I want to do stuff like that now and
Yeah.
how much more I see other people doing that. And it used to be kind of one of those things too, where it was sort of like a, you know, like butting heads with guys sometimes because it becomes one of those things as you're doing it, you're trying to
It's a
outdo one another.
pissing contest.
It is. It is. It can be a verbal kind of thing and just behaviors and stuff. And it's just kind of tiring because it's like you start to see how pointless that stuff
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, and you start noticing it on yourself. And I know most people are like, one of the other things where like I made a meme where it was just like, you know, about going to confession. It's just that, you know what I mean? It's like you're actually, it's a form of therapy of actually, because it's the same thing as therapy technically, because therapy kind of rips off of it because you're talking to someone who's helping you deal with these problems and they're giving you guidance not
Well, you
just
know, that's
for
what's
life but it's also for like your spiritual wellness, your emotional and
what
mental well-being. And people forget that it's like it's just that, but you're adding the spiritual and somebody that's keeping you, you're holding you accountable to these things. Even though we can be accountable to ourselves and to God, realistically speaking, when we try to do it, we go easy on ourselves. But when you're talking to someone that's been placed there to help us in that, the dynamic completely changes because now it's just like, oh man, I have to see Father. But it's just like you start noticing the things you do, and then when you read what you're supposed to confess, you start looking at all these things. You're like, dang, brother, I'm out here just every day. I shouldn't go out. But yeah, you start noticing these things, and you actually, that's where, like, for me, that okay, now you notice, so you want to make that change to be better. Because then
well,
even
and the
then
thing
you're
is
gonna end
too,
up in confession anyways. Like, okay, this is what I did. This is what I need to work on.
and I think too, so many people have this Hollywood conception of it, and
Oh
you know,
yeah.
I never participated as a
Forgive
Catholic,
me,
so I'm
Father,
not sure
for
how realistic it is. But
yeah.
you know, so much of it is like, hey, I can do whatever I want, and I've had Catholics tell me this. So some people, pretty devout Catholics, basically like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I want, but I'm just going to go confess and it's all done. And with
Oof.
all the confession stuff like that I've participated with and what I know other people Orthodox and other churches and things like that, it's like no, it's about trying to fix those things. Like
Yeah.
if you're going out, and you're banging hookers or whatever, things like that, like you got to
Call me.
figure out how to stop banging hookers.
Oh
Like
yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And like I had no idea
but
what. Yeah, like 'cause that's what that was like my assumption as well. It's just like I was like, where's the confessional booth? Where's like the whole Hollywood?
oh yeah, I know. Like wait, I got to stand up here with you and talk. What?
What do you mean? Like it's you, me, in front of Jesus, like in front of the icon of Christ, and then I gotta confess. And I know I've mentioned it in that other podcast of just that life confession. Like, woo, bro. Like it's all the things that you've ever done wrong, and actually saying them out
That
loud.
you can remember too.
Yeah, right. But
Because how many things have I ended up going back and confessing for because I forgot?
bro, yeah. I need to go on Saturday. Anyways, but yeah, it's like once you get all that off your chest, dude, it feels so good. Like I'm gonna be 100% honest. I've never cried that hard in my life in a while. Like it's one thing like when you lose a friend, like when either like they commit suicide and there's like this, this sadness because you lost someone. Like yes, it's there, but from a truly letting go of other things as well and all that, and it's more of just realizing that God will forgive you, like and when you can't even forgive yourself, and then you're confessing these things, and like people say,
God is merciful.
he
God
is, but like the way he uses the priesthood, and it's just like I know people have said they have their experiences with the Holy Spirit, but like it just every time, it's exactly what I needed to hear, like to a T, and it just hits you, and you're just like, oh, ooh, and at first it's hard because it's just like it's exactly what you need to hear, and sometimes it's you're just like, ooh, I need to kind of sit for a second, but afterwards you're just like, okay, it's like some medicine, you know what I mean? Sometimes, like for those that are in the medical field, you know what I mean, you get that shot of penicillin, you're like, oh, bro, I can't walk. But if you've been like really actually like when you're actually really sick and you've had like bronchitis, pneumonia, you name it, you actually start taking your antibiotics, or if they have to give you IV antibiotics, a shot of penicillin, whatever it might be. It sucks at first, and it's gonna burn, it's gonna hurt, but afterwards the relief is just it's exactly like that. It's insane. So yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I think we should wind this down. I know it's getting a bit a little bit later and everything
Yeah.
like that, but it's good chatting, man. I don't know if there's anything else you want to kind of finish up, kind of
No, just
summarize or anything.
yeah, like it's a long road, and like honestly, as soon as you if you do decide to go, please go. You know what I mean? It's ask questions. That was one of the things that's good, is like they'll answer all the questions they can. Do your research. You know what I mean? Pray about it, and then just if I had tried a lot of different things before that, and like for once, I think things are actually working out, and I have faith that like, and I know now that this is where things happen. So I definitely suggest it. You know what I mean?
Well, it is a long road, but it's a valuable road, and it's very satisfying.
Yeah, it is. And if you guys have questions, we'll always be here to answer whatever we can. So
Yeah,
feel
yeah, and I
free
think
to always
too,
message us.
and like we were talking about too as well, we're gonna try to give a little more lead time when we're doing these because
Yeah.
we've tried to just kind of go out with it. And I know like maybe more people have questions and stuff like that, so try to figure out like how we can get that working.
Yeah. But thank you all for those who've been here. Like, it means a lot. And,
I think Joel's been here for a bit.
Yeah, Joel. Man, Joel's the man. Whoever you are, bro. Hey, God bless you, brother.
Thanks, Joel. Right on, man. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our ramblings. I don't know about a regular schedule. It's kind of hard because both he and I have a lot going on. So we're gonna do more. So we need to do that, and we need to figure out kind of the cadence of some of that. But it's just kind of with schedules and things like that. But
Yeah.
there are specific nights where we can do some of this, and we just need to figure out kind of how to do that. So we'll let you know. We'll keep you posted as to what we decide on.
Yeah, we'll get something going, and we'll definitely make a post on it, and y'all will see it on the DD page and on PBF and on the Discord as well.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This is PBF, and
Yeah.
we are